tell politicians, I'm voting, and I'm voting for a political party that addresses systemic racism in education, in health, in housing, in the police. And there'll be one party you will see will give you more than the other parties. And then you vote for them. And then you demand that they deliver. If you don't, we can expect more hellfire from people who just don't like brown-skinned people.
Or the start of last parliaments, we had Black Lives Matter being a big issue. We had these big protests being an issue. I think a lot of black voters would have been underwhelmed by Starmer's response to that. In fact, I don't think Starmer had this really strong line of really supporting black communities during that moment. And I think since then, there really hasn't been a strong attempt to reach out to black voters. I think Labour will make things better, right? It's hard to make things worse than they have been.
By default.
By default. And I think there are some good things Labour are going to propose, right? But I think if you're a black voter, you will be looking at Labour with kind of like a bit of like a, like, let's see.
A young child, innocent child, murdered, just leaving their house to go to school, which I would have expected to be the national conversation for the whole week. I found it strange, and this is aside from newspapers, to see the conversation turn to knife crime in London.
Yeah. He's literally murdered, and the initial thinking is he just reduced to a side story, and he's described almost dismissively as sword boy. Sword lad, yeah, lad. It's actually quite interesting. I've long seen the Sun that tends to describe young black men as lads for some bizarre reason. I don't know why, but so it spoke to the fact that, again, it just using three simple words: Black Lives Matter, and it just spoke to the fact that they really didn't matter in that regard. But you're bang on the money, in particular, about how the story changed. That we went from this is a grown man with a sword who's just killed a little boy to we need to stop and search more, essentially, black men.
We have a massive problem with the far right in this country, and no one, football, no one is challenging that. So I laud Mbappe, and I would hope what he would do would empower, just like when, Black Lives Matter and after the murder of George Floyd, how it empowered people to stand up and speak and stand up for their rights. I would hope that almost hearing Mbappe, the world's biggest, most expensive player, talking that way empowers others to feel I can do that as well.
I'm talking to you right now. I am flying out to Frankfurt. I have had my security training before I fly out to Frankfurt. So things I've got to be aware of when I'm flying and when I'm covering certain games. And there are, 2 or 3 games in this European Championship which are just higher risk for me because I am black and because of what we know is going on in various nations. And I hope nothing goes wrong, and I know how to handle myself and whatnot. But that's just part of the territory there's just certain areas that are spicier for black people.
Yeah. The fight hasn't ended.
But the fight's never going to end.
But then we can't stop then.
But fights take many different forms. Is our fight winning? You're here with a voice. You're able to influence people.
Of course, but our nephews, our cousins, our kids are still getting licked down by police.
Absolutely, and it's never going to be winning. Let's not kid ourselves about that. But does that mean that we've stopped fighting? Does that mean that we've not stopped speaking?
I'm not saying that we
risking
don't
our
fight.
space.
I'm
We're doing it in a very different way to what Just Stop Oil are doing.
Why can't we do both? Why can't we do both?
People have done both for years, for decades. People have risked their space, sacrificed positions, sacrificed their jobs, been beaten up, in some cases being killed, in some cases lost their livelihood, in some cases are still in prison.
I don't dispute any of that.
Well, if you're not disputing any of it,
I'm not saying that we don't protest. I'm not saying that we haven't come together. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I'm looking at what these people are doing and they clearly feel it's making an impact. So I'm saying, can we maybe learn something from that method?
Psychologically, I think capitalism is very much, and even on a global scale, is like terrorism for black people of colour. Like we survive in it because we have to. I think as men specifically, we get thrown in the front line because we're the ones that I said we have to make the money. Like our pride and value is based on how much money we make. So we find a way and we do it. But if we ever check it, it's madness. Like the amount of time, hours, and effort I spend in trying to make money.
People who were Black British were much more likely than the general public to be voting Labour, as has happened in past elections as well. When we asked people why they're voting Labour this time round, Black British people were most likely to say that it was about their economic policies. So more likely than the general public to say it was jobs, housing and cost of living that was driving their vote.
I have a really strong, irrational, maybe rational hatred, and there's not many things or people that I hate, but when I see black and brown people, forget the government, but just people that are normal citizens advocating for this as well, the feeling and the vitriol I feel towards these people is really strong, because the idea that, and I get we're not all a homogenous group, but the idea that you could be in favour and supporting a policy that sends black and brown people, you said back to Rwanda. Most of these people have never been to Rwanda.
Did I say back to
you did, but that's okay. No, that's fine. But that's what makes it even worse.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Because they don't care where Rwanda is just an arbitrary country, just as long as you don't come here. Of course it is.
Just go as far away as possible to that African country and just buy.
Yeah.
The fact that there's people that look like us and come from our communities that are in favour, and there's a lot of those people, it makes me angry.
Obviously, I am happy to see the Tories go. After everything they've done, they deserve to go. They deserve a lot more than that. If any of us had done the damage that they've done to the UK, we would be in jail. If we, I've said this before, if I'd lied on my taxes and deprived the public purse of, say, £1,000, I'd go to jail. They lie on a bus about Brexit, cost the public purse £40 billion a year, 100 billion from the economy. They get to be prime minister. They have done so much damage. Misconduct in public office doesn't even come close to calling what they've actually done. When you look at the fact that they deliberately went against their experts on COVID, on Brexit, on the economy with Liz Truss, they have damaged millions of people.